Hey, what's up guys? How's it going? It's me, Dakota Fishman, and today we are going to cover what exactly I believe that IG is probably going to add to this game at some point. And I can tell you one of the things that comes to mind, and I've looked at a lot of the familiars, I just expect there to be familiars coming into the game. Namely, what I think some of those familiars are going to be. And this is just my suspicion based on what we've already got. Okay, is if you look at Queen Bee, you'll notice that range attack, Av HP are one of the two things mentioned, but yet you'll never see HP mentioned anywhere else. Something tells me that given that we've got a Cav range HP familiar, that we're gonna see HP range and Inf attack. We're gonna see another familiar that does something for HP, and then probably range attack. You know, so it's kind of in that direction, it seems like. Because if you look at a lot of the familiars, that just seems to be the direction that it looks like it's going in. Now, what their maxed and ultimate abilities will be is anyone's guess, but I would think that they're probably going to find a way to make Lunite a little bit easier to obtain. Seeing as how it's literally the only way a person gets this is either by their having the Lunite capacity and production up at such a certain pace, or they're spending to do it. I don't know about you, but after a while, it takes its toll. I would like to think that IGG at some point would try to find a financial incentive for the high end to invest into a hero that would buff that in some capacity. But, you know, if anything, it's anyone's guess, right? The second thing that I was looking at, and I think it's a real possibility, is when you were looking at gear sets, somebody pointed out that if you get into pullers, right, you got Cav and range, which is 21% and 35. You know, you've got an equivalent piece, which you can get in the Bon Appetit set called the Ambrosial Cup. That's 21 and 35, but that's Inf and range, and you have Cav and range. And so it's kind of interesting how here you have Inf and Cav with the Book of the Dead, but you're only getting Inf HP. Now, what's fascinating about that to me is that that tells me that maybe one day we'll actually see another set and see more pieces like Book of the Dead, where they'll give you one stat, but maybe two of the other underlying stats for it. Because when you look at the Polar Ring, right, the Polar Ring is only going to give you whatever you have access to within the actual set itself. Even though you're getting Cav and range HP, and then if you get Inf and range HP with the Ambrosial Cup, it's like suspicion would suggest that if they've got 35 and 35 but one stat, likelihood of the Book of the Dead being a repeat in other future sets is a real possibility. And whether they'll be cheaper in rares is anyone's guess, but they're substantially cheaper in comparison to like the Polar Ring, where it's like 17 embers to get. Whereas, you know, getting 18 and 17 is like, you're looking at that and it's still it's a pretty steep price. But you look at like the Ambrosial and it looks easier, and yet it's a little deceiving. You know, it's like, in some ways more than one, you almost start to wonder if there's a grand plan there. I honestly think we're going to see more 2-type or even 3-type at some point. I think they'll eventually cater to that audience of people that are looking for more mixed gear. Because outside of Inf and range attack, the only other thing that quadruples it is champion gear. And a lot of champion pieces, you'll notice, are doing Inf and range and army attack, and Cav and range and army attack. And you know, you've got every variation of the such. And obviously, you know, people are doing Dominion and they're doing Royal, Baron, and it's like, you know, eventually you get up to a certain point where now you've got rally leads with full sets of Emperor, and these champ players have got to get an edge somehow. And so there's a part of me that kind of wonders if they'll add something in between. We've started to see that, you know, which is that Dominion gear is kind of this gear set that's supposed to be this way above a champion set, but yet it's not panning out that way. But I honestly think that's the direction that we'll probably see it go in. Now, the last and only other bit is whether or not will we see more true types. I think we'll see T7s and T6s and T8s. I really think that'll be a thing. What that'll look like, though, is anyone's guess. But I think it's implied that when you've got a golden star in the first tier, that you're going to have a golden star for the second, the third, and the fourth. Now, what are they going to do about the actual movement speed is a good question. Because by the time they're T5, you literally lose all of it. You know, it's like you're already at the point where you have some of the slowest marches possible, right? So I almost wonder at what point will IGG kind of turn around and look at Astrolite and other pieces and look at ways at which they can make T6 and T7 and T8 a thing. I only think that's going to be a thing, in part because it seems like a natural stepping stone for them to go one step further. Even though nobody wants to hear it, I can just see it happening. Now, beyond that, you know, if there's any other prediction that I can see them doing, I think I could see them coming back to the castle wall and actually working on adding traps and making T5 traps the thing, because I don't know what happened to T5 traps, but it never happened. And that's something that I think they need to look at and revisit, because it's something that at one point in time, wall traps are a thing, but not anymore, really. Not that you can't do them, it's just that you don't see them anymore. You know, it's like the use case for that kind of trapping in this game is kind of dead. You don't see it any longer. It's mainly troop-based. And that's really in part because of the Sanctuary. You know, and I don't know, maybe we'll see bonuses towards making players that attack get bonuses in the Sanctuary somehow. Maybe we'll see higher rates or decreased rates, for all we know, into things like, you know, an Elite Tycoon, for example, I think could be a thing. You know, artifacts have been kind of an interesting one, because obviously there's been a huge amount of stat bonuses, like almost 200% really, that you can gather just out of the actual artifacts themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing that these actually do a little bit more than just what they're doing. Like, I think Wonder-related stats and Wonder-related gears might become more of a thing. I mean, we already see it with sigils, but we've also seen where, you know, jewels are also kind of getting added into the game that are kind of revamping the way that we understand, you know, the current context at which these gear pieces are in. I could also see something going on there with artifacts at some point in the later date where these could turn into gear pieces for individual heroes, for example, and that would change the dynamic. Where instead of it having it like set as a base stat across all of your stats, I could see them going, ah yes, let's just add that to a hero and only have 5 sets of heroes with however many. You know, it's just an example, but I could see something like that. You know, the same way that gear in this game has kind of worked that way in some capacity, but, you know, most of what I'm suggesting at this point is just what I really think I could see happening, but whether it actually happens or not is really anyone's guess. If you've got any ideas and you want to share them below, I'm all ears. Be looking in the comments section below.